We used to go down First Avenue. We used to go right down to the bottom of the First Avenue where the shops was. We used to turn then and go down by the side of what they call the Transport Club, where the bus depot is, down there. And we always used to call it the Old Line. That was the railway. We used to walk up over the railway, down the other side, into Fowler's Park. There, we'd play afternoons, football all afternoon. Come back over the Old Line, up the side, back up First Avenue, home. We went down the birdcage.
What was the birdcage?
It was like a very long passage that went all the way round the edge of the park. And what it was, you went down the birdcage, you followed it round to the right, and you went along the side of the railway that used to be the old GWR railway, under the bit of a tunnel where the railway run over the top, brings you out, still in the birdcage, and you used to come out by two pools called the green pools. We used to come out there, then you'd walk up again, under another archway where the railway went over, and out onto the canal. And I can remember when I was old enough to drink, and I was 18, and the Bushbury Arms round here was our local. That was every one of us drunk in there, and that. And I remember going in, and I was 18, and there used to be a fella around here called Bert Baker. And Bert Baker, he was a top-notcher, white shirt, black dicky bow, you know, the lot, the works. And I goes in, and I stood at the bar. Barmaid comes down. I said, "Pint of Springfield bitter, please." So he starts pulling this bitter. And I seen him walking down the bar, and I thought, oh, here we go. And he comes over and he says, "Young man, are you old enough to drink?" I says, yeah, I'm 18. I'll have a word with your dad when he comes in. He says, just to make sure. And he did. He asked me dad if I was old enough to drink. But after that, I used to go in and all the lads and that was my local till I got married, that was, you know. Yeah. But I've had some good times in there. I've enjoyed it. I always call myself a Low Hillian. But if you're born on Low Hill, and people who live on Low Hill, and they're my age, you know, your age, they all know one another, and they all know people who've lived on there, and people who've died, and people who've moved on. And we all know it was one big community, you know, it was. Everybody knew one another. Everybody would go from one house to another. You never used to knock the door, or you'd walk in, and that was it, you know. I mean, if the people didn't like you, and then you didn't fit in, that was it. You don't fit in. But when you was born and bred there, if you'd have been born and bred like me, you're part of the crowd, that's it. I'll never regret being born and bred on Low Hill, never. I'll never ever regret that till the day I die. I won't. That is me. I'm part of that. Then you would get the industry. You had the ABC Cupra on the corner. That was a big factory. You had Guy Motors that run the whole length of Park Lane, where they used to build the big wagons and that. The other side, you had the Eveready. You remember the Eveready? They used to make batteries, and they also made radios. And my auntie Anna, worked there building radios at the Eveready. That was where she worked. If you come the other way, past the Eveready, you've got the big bus depot there, where my dad worked, and that. If you go round where the bus depot is, and you go down when I was telling you, towards the old line to going over Fowler's Park, on the right-hand side there, you had the coal stores. Remember the big coal stores? I don't know if it's still there now, I don't know. Remember the big pool between the railway lines? And they used to call that Bill's Pool, right? All fenced off. You was always told when you was kids, never go there, it's too deep, you'll get drowned in there. And some people used to tell you, and I've heard the story a few times, you don't want to go in there, there's no bottom to that pool. And I just think, no bottom. And this one chap, he says to me, you know the big railway line that runs across the top? Yeah. Well, there was a train come off there one time and it went in the pool. And they never found it, it's that deep. You know, and that's what we was told when we was kids. I said, I'm a Low Hillian cock, remember, we don't talk the same language as you. I says, we talk and we all understand one another. I says, you get on Low Hill, and I say to somebody, hey, yo, you called that? They know exactly what I'm saying, they do. I said, there's a bloke lived by us called Tipper. I said, he used to have a big suitcase. He used to go around, he'd sell pencils, books, all sorts in this suitcase. I says, them are the characters, you know, you don't see that now, you know, nothing like that, you don't. I mean, my sisters would come home from school and the girls next door, and the roads was all right, they was quiet in them days, they'd get a great big rope and they'd be there skipping in the street, and that's how they used to entertain themselves, with a skipping rope. And the lads would have a football, kicking the football about, But you don't see that nowadays.